Hi, boys and girls. Today, we're going to talk about how stories have conflict or tension. Readers of fiction will notice that characters in the stories they read often encounter a sort of conflict or problem. The world of stories often revolves around how the characters react and resolve the problem. Today, we're going to read a historical fiction title called The Last Bicycle. We're going to identify the conflict and the type of conflict the characters face. As we read, we'll notice the characters encounter a conflict or experience some tension. We'll take a look at the different types of conflict we might see. Let's use our anchor chart. All right, so this is what you're going to glue in your notebook today. These are the types of conflict. And just like yesterday, you might want to add some pictures to the side. I'll try to take a picture of my notebook after I do the lesson tomorrow. But for tonight, I'm going to go ahead and record. So these are the types of external conflicts you could have between your characters. You could have person versus person. This is where two types of characters are going to be against each other. You can have a person versus nature. So this makes me think of like the story Hatchet, where the boy in Hatchet is lost in the wilderness and he's trying to survive. This could be another story about characters that experience some natural disaster or something like that. And then you also have person versus society. And so this is where your character is working against a group of people. This makes me think of the story Ban That Book, where our main character is working against the school board. And she is trying to get her favorite book off the banned book list because they decided it's inappropriate for students. And so she has to work extra hard to get her favorite book back in the library. And so that's her person versus society book. So those are external conflicts. That's where the main character is working outside of themselves, trying to figure out how to solve a problem against other things or people. The other type of conflict could be internal conflict. So internal conflict is between a character and themselves. So a character's struggle takes place in their own mind. So this type of character usually has something to do with making a choice between right and wrong. Do I tell a lie? Do I cheat? Do I lie? Or overcoming emotions with mixed feelings. So this would be books that are dealing with grief or loneliness or being different. So these would be our person versus self when the character is having some kind of struggle within themselves, within their emotional self or within their mind. All right, so we are going to go to our story today. This is called The Last Bicycle. And we're going to use this chart as a reference for our type of conflict. So we talked about this chart a little bit in writing and how we start kind of at this left bottom side and we talk about the beginning of the book, how the character and settings are introduced. Then we start to go to the conflict. At the climax, we have the most tension. This is the part right before we solve the problem. All right, so then as we have the falling action, and so this is where we talk about the events that happen as the conflict is resolved, and then our resolution. This is how this answers the question: how is the conflict resolved? So we start with our characters, we build our conflict, we hit our climax, then we come down to the falling action, and we finalize with the resolution. All right, so our text title today is The Last Bicycle. And you are going to do this with your own personal book. It doesn't have to be your big chapter book. It might be another day where we pick a good realistic fiction picture book, or it could be a day where you head over to Epic to get a little bit shorter book so that you can finish this in one day. Or it might be a book that you've read in the past that you remember a lot of good details about. All right. So let's read. Jacques couldn't keep from grinning as he rode his bicycle along the cobblestone road, past the old castle and down to the town square. From a mile away he could hear singing and cheering as townsfolk celebrated the end of Hitler's war. That day, August 26th, 1944, Charles de Gaulle marched triumphantly into Paris, and the proud song of the Marseillaise lifted millions of hearts. Jacques not only grinned for France, but also because he had found the last bicycle in town. His friends stopped in their tracks when they saw the bicycle. "Hey Jacques, where did you get that bike?" Jacques felt a lump in his throat. Then he squeezed out the words, "My brother Philippe hid it really well." The boys fell quiet. Pierre, one of Jacques' schoolmates, said at last, "Sure is a beautiful bike." Yes, Philippe loved it. "Hey, anyone want a ride?" The boys clamored, Me, let me ride it, Jacques." After they all took turns, Pierre offered, "I'll pay 10 francs for it." Jacques laughed. "It's not for sale." The bicycle was priceless beyond measure. Almost nothing was for sale in Uzer, not bicycles or cars or fuel, only second-hand clothes and rusty tools. Food was scarce. Edgy, wary of danger, people emerged from their stone cottages and scattered farms, getting used to a world without constant fear. A few shops and an inn opened. Trains ran, carrying mostly troops. But no one forgot the awfulness of war, especially Jacques. 4 years earlier, Philippe had told him, "I heard that in Chinon, the enemy torched the buildings and smashed whatever was left, and they'll come here next." Jacques' family hid whatever they could in the rubble of the old castle. Jacques and Philippe stashed the bicycle up in the tower. The enemy raided the castle soon after, and the bicycle survived. But Philippe, kind, handsome Philippe, went to war for his beloved France and didn't return. For Jacques, nothing would ever be the same, though now he could finally once more breathe the air of freedom. So that bicycle seems really important to Jacques because it was a reminder of his relationship with his brother who is now gone. Um, this story takes place in France, and it takes place after World War II. And so most of the fighting had gone on in Europe. And so what we want to think about is Jacques and his friends have lived through a terrible, terrible war where bombs and things were going off all around them, and their homes and property were being destroyed, and you never knew from one day to another what was coming next. And also, it sounds like food was scarce and businesses weren't open, and so you really didn't know where or how to get supplies to rebuild, even though the war is over. And we're going to keep on reading. That's why. That's why they said the bicycle was priceless beyond measure when his friend offered to pay 10 francs, which would be like French dollars. We say dollars, they say francs. And so, because there's nothing for sale, no amount of money would compare to a bicycle, just because he would never get another one for a really long time. Okay. Where is the next page of my story? Oh, yes. Technical difficulties. I'm looking. Aha. Okay. All right. One morning he pedaled along past the vineyards, the scent of newly replanted grapes on the breeze. The French countryside was coming alive. He turned onto the paved highway that led to Paris. Ahead, he saw a man in soldier's clothing. Jacques' stomach tightened. Recently, there had been rumors that enemy spies still hid in the countryside. Jacques again tasted the bitterness of fear. The uniform, dusty and worn, was not French. The stranger's shoulders hunched under a heavy backpack, straightened as he turned and stared at Jacques and then at the bicycle, Philippe's bicycle. Jacques gripped the handlebars until his knuckles turned white. Jacques tried to sound normal, unafraid. Bonjour, monsieur. Comment allez-vous? Bonjour. I'm sorry, but I don't speak French very well. Oh, Jacques was relieved. You're an American. Why are you still here? I stayed behind to treat small children. I am an army doctor. You care for the French as well as the Americans? Jacques asked. Of course. There's been an outbreak of scarlet fever. Jacques could see the exhaustion on the man's face. I've just come from the train station, and I missed the last train to Paris, and now I might lose my place on the ship that will take me to America. His shoulders drooped. See, my father is very ill, and I must get home. And then a hopeful spark lit up his eyes. May I borrow your bicycle, son? Borrow? I'd never get it back. The man pulled a gun from his backpack and Jacques drew back. So let's stop right there for a second. All right, so the conflict has been revealed. Jacques has a decision to make. He should help the American army doctor make his way home or hold on to the bicycle that reminds him so fondly of his brother. This is a decision Jacques has to make for himself. So knowing this, let's take a look at our chart to see if we can identify what type of conflict he is having. All right, so what do you think? Person versus person, person versus nature, I would say no. Person versus society, don't think so. Person versus self, yes, this is person versus self. You might be tempted to say person versus person because you've got the soldier and you've got Jacques, and they're both involved in the conflict. But really, the choice is up to Jacques. So let's look at our chart. Our characters. We have Jacques. We have the soldier. We'll add more. And we know that the background is World War II. Maybe we should put after World War II. Okay, and our conflict is, does he give up? We should put his name. Does he give up his brother's bike so that the American soldier can return home? Okay. All right, let's see what happens when we get to the climax of the story. I'll give you anything. This gun is valuable. I'll trade it for the bicycle. Jacques shook his head. No guns. But Jacques saw the desperation in the man's eyes. He remembered that American boys had died alongside Philippe. America had helped liberate France. But Philippe's bicycle? Did Jacques owe it to this man? Jacques slowly relaxed his grip. And then, as if it had a life of its own, the bicycle was suddenly released to the hands of the American. You'll not be sorry, I promise. I'll send you an even nicer bicycle from Texas. The American looked at the identification on the handlebars. Thank you, Philippe Dupont. With all of my heart, I thank you, he said as he jumped on the bicycle, pedaling away. My name is Jacques, the boy called after him. The doctor turned back and nodded, and Jacques watched him grow smaller and smaller as he cycled up the road. All right. When his friends heard what Jacques had done, they yelled at him, "Jacques, you're crazy! You gave away the last bicycle in town!" Day after day, Jacques waited for the promised bicycle. Always the station master shook his head. Slowly, Uzair found its way back to an orderly life. Trains once again arrived on time, and food, clothes, books, even an old car could be bought, but no bicycles. Then, one day in spring, when the fields were blooming with the fleur de colza that looked like sunshine, Jacques heard the whistle of a train. And as he walked by the station master called out, "Viens vite! Jacques, come look!" When Jacques saw the shiny new bicycle, he felt joy bursting inside of him. He had been right to trust the doctor. With his hands on the handlebars, he grinned and claimed his prize. Ready to zoom away, he put his foot on a pedal, but the station master stopped him. "Wait, Jacques, you must sign for the rest." "The rest?" Jacques scratched his head in puzzlement. "Yes, indeed," the station master said, handing Jacques an official paper to sign. He gestured for Jacques to follow him toward the boxcar, and he was joined by the assistant station manager and the ticket clerk. Then Jacques' jaw dropped as the men began unloading 99 shiny new bicycles from the train. The station master handed Jacques a note. "To Jacques Dupont, for you and your friends in the Uzair, 100 thanks. Your grateful American friend, Stephen L., M.D." "Thanks, Doc," Jacques whispered, and Philippe, "Merci beaucoup," which means thank you very much. All right, so if we go to our drawing over here, let's think about how we finish up the story. All right, so our climax is I hope I spelled that right. Jacques gives the doctor his, let's call it the last bicycle. The bicycle that was so priceless, so precious, especially since it was his brother. Then we have our falling action. So our town is coming back to life is returning to normal. And Jacques is waiting to see if the doctor will keep his promise. And so how is our conflict solved? The doctor sends Jacques a bike and 99 more bikes to share with his friends. So I would say in that village, probably at least every family got a bike. I would say. I would hope. I would hope he's passed them out equally among the family so that everybody could get around. Because if you think about it, like in that time period, it was probably much easier to have a bike and maintain a bike rather than rely on a car. A car would have been super expensive, and to have fuel and to be able to get it fixed when it broke down, that would have been very expensive. So a bike was a much more reliable mode of transportation. And so when we're thinking about conflict, this is what we want to think about. Um, as readers, it is important that we pay careful attention to the world of the story as we read. One element of the story we must notice is the conflict. When we're reading, noticing the clues that reveal the conflict or the tension in the story and how it moves forward to a resolution helps us better understand the world that's created in the story. and it helps us recognize the important theme. So I hope you're asking yourself, what is the theme or the lesson in this story? As we continue our study of fiction, let's always make sure that we're identifying the conflict or the problem in our story and to kind of differentiate about between the three types of, or the four types of conflict that you might see in a story. So those conflicts, again, are the external conflict, person versus person, person versus nature, or person versus society. Or you could have an internal conflict like Jacques. Jacques was debating with himself about whether or not to give up the bike. And so this kind of conflict would be person versus self. All right, so in your reading today, when you're doing your daily reading, I want you to use the blank chart that's in the lesson. So I've given you a copy of this in the lesson. If you were in school with me today, you obviously had a paper copy of this, and we are going to glue those in our notebooks. But if you have the digital copy, you're going to fill this in, and it'll be saved to your lesson. And then that way, I can see what you were thinking for a story that you picked out today. And again, this doesn't have to be your chapter book story. This could be a picture book that you have at home. This could be a book in Epic, or it could be maybe a book that you've read in the past that you remember a lot of details about. But make sure you've done that daily reading today, at least 20 to 30 minutes. Bye, readers.